So you're watching the show and you're thinking, I want to talk about my college. I want to talk about my career. Well, I would love to have you. I'm currently looking for speakers to talk about either their HIM program experiences or even about their career. So if you're interested in being on the Health IT playground, please email me at riaready@gmail.com. Once again, the email is riaready@gmail.com. Now, back to the show.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to our newest episode of the Health IT Playground, a place where you're going to learn about the different areas within the health IT space that you may be able to actually do one day. And I am excited about this episode because this is a topic that is very technical, very scary to do when you think about it, but we need people that have the skill set to do this particular job role. And that is, I've heard you guys, software engineering. And I have an expert here with me. His name is Eric Bamberg, and I'm excited because he's going to be talking to you about his journey within software engineering and also how he is currently working at a health IT software company. But before I start, I'm going to go ahead and do a overall introduction so you guys can learn more about who Eric is. So, Eric is the founding software engineer at Bambi Health. And Bambi Health is an AI powered non-emergency medical transportation, dispatch, and scheduling software company. He brings over 20 years of experience in tech. He started as a systems analyst in 2002, and he has since then transitioned to software engineering in 2012. He holds a bachelor's in computer science from UMass Darman, and he has a deep experience with technologies such as Java, Python, Django, SQL, AWS, and so many more. I couldn't list all of them, but he is known for solving complex business problems. He mentors junior developers, and he also has experience building reusable software solutions. So join me, round of applause from your rooms and your computers and desktops to Eric for joining me today on this channel. Thank you so much, Eric, for joining me today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And my first question that I always ask everyone is, how did you learn about health IT?
I was working as a software developer at this point, and I became aware of a job at a company called Life Image.
Yeah.
That was actually my first foray into healthcare IT and software. Life Image has a software system that enables secure, fast transfer of medical images from one medical facility to another, replacing the existing system of actually having them put the images on a CD and you have to take it to your next appointment. I had to do that for some x-rays I got. I had to take it on a CD to a facility across the street from the hospital where I got the test done. Yeah, clearly it needed an update, but that's where I first got started.
Awesome. Awesome. And then from there, you obviously have done some amazing things from that moment. Just going back to just the beginning of your career, how did you actually start your pathway into software engineering for those that are thinking about it and don't really know where to start?
I've always known that I wanted to be a programmer. And when I was in college, I was fortunate that I had some connections to the HR at Texas Instruments
Okay.
in Attleboro. And I was able to get a job there doing IT work that included a little bit of programming and eventually transitioned into all programming.
Okay. And I'm just curious, what was the first programming language that you learned? I'm just curious.
It was,
Visual Basic.
that's the first one I used professionally. The first one I learned was Basic with line numbers and everything. It was real old school.
And nowadays, this is just a question for those that are watching. In your opinion, being a seasoned professional here, if for my audience here, what language would you recommend they should start with if they are like you were interested in being a programmer earlier on?
I would say Python is a good choice. My career, I probably spent the longest amount of time doing Java, and Java's not a bad choice. It's used a lot too. Java is a bit more structured, but also is a bit harder to get up and running and get going. Python's very quick to get running and get programming. It's popular, so it's learning it is not going to go to waste.
Okay. Awesome. And so, yes, you are working in this software engineering space currently at a healthcare company. What exactly does your day to day look like for those that are wondering?
It's typically a combination of writing code, either new features or bug fixes, whatever is we all work on our top priorities for the company based on customer feedback. We're a very small team and we focus on the biggest priorities. We try to make big impacts quickly. Also, the job involves reviewing my coworkers' code. Basically, for those who don't know, when I want to introduce changes into the system, I write them up, I write tests, I test things manually, I make sure it's all set. Then I post my proposed changes to the rest of the team, and someone will review it, go over it, make sure I didn't miss anything. Maybe they have some ideas for other things I can include or ways I can optimize the code. And then once it's been approved, then it gets merged into our production system. So on the flip side, I'll be reviewing other programmers' code as well. So this helps keep the code base solid, and it also keeps us from producing silos of information where I'm the only one who knows how the pricing system works. So if I go on vacation, there better not be any problems, stuff like that. At the company I'm at now, and throughout most of my experience, not a lot of meetings. There's a team meeting every day where we just catch up with what we're doing. If anybody wants to bring something up to the whole team, we do it then. But we're obviously, if we have problems, we contact each other. We use Slack a lot to chat, and we use web conferencing where necessary. Our company doesn't have an office, so we're all fully remote, which I find works really well.
And you mentioned about how did testing and writing, how long did it take you from your education at UMass to being a professional? How long for you, how long did it take for you to really get confident enough in your skill set to be able to do that?
I was working as a contractor at TI programming throughout a lot of my college career. So it was in the classroom and programming professionally for internal use, which is it's a lot less stressful, I think, than outside customers.
Yeah.
On the one hand, your users can come walk to your desk if they find a problem with your code, but you're all on the same team and you're all trying to achieve the same goals. It's with customers, obviously, you're trying to help the customers, but sometimes there are conflicting interests, or not so much interests, but conflicting needs. So for me, it was a gradual easing in. But I found that the work I did for TI also helped me in college. I came into the classes with kind of a perspective of already having done this to some degree professional. Don't get me wrong. I still had a lot to learn, and I'm continuing to learn, but it was interesting that it worked out that way.
And what type of personality or what type of, I guess, traits would someone need to have to thrive as a software engineer?
You need to be analytical to be able to break down the problem and put it into steps that a computer can understand. But you also need to be able to communicate with people, with your fellow programmers, with other people in your company who are designing the product, who are talking with the customers and converting the customer feedback into specific projects. Sometimes I talk directly with customers. So you definitely need communication skills. That's something that I struggled a bit with at first. I was very shy, socially anxious, and I was lucky I had bosses that forced me to develop those skills. I did a few programs like Dale Carnegie, and they made us present a lot, so I gradually got used to it. The me who started out in his career would never have done this interview. It would have been terrifying. So that's something that is necessary, and some people don't realize that. There's a stereotype of the programmer who's hard to work with and very arrogant, and that really doesn't work because no one's working alone. And a genius programmer who you can't communicate with is not that useful.
I love that. I love that. I've heard that as well, where it's, oh, you're quiet, but you want to be in this space. Just go be an engineer. It's like engineers have to be able to talk to people and interact and communicate. It's all collaboration. So thank you for definitely confirming that. Let's talk about courses and certifications. And I love that you brought this up. The big thing now, especially with all this technology coming out, is all of these boot camps and learn how to code in 6 weeks and get your job in 3 months. What are your views on that? Do you feel like, especially as someone that has mentored and is mentoring junior developers, what is your opinion or your take on these programs? Is that, in your opinion, a effective way to start your career in software engineering?
I think I've never done a boot camp, but I've done online courses. I'm familiar with that kind of stuff, and I think that it can be useful. I think that a 6-week boot camp is not going to give you the same knowledge and deep understanding as a 4-year bachelor degree in computer science, but it's not going to take 4 years either. There's that opportunity cost of spending those years learning, which is always good. But in the meantime, you're not working, you're not getting experience with the actual work. And I think a lot of times in reality, boot camps will be using more modern technologies than computer science degrees, say. And of course, there's different kinds of degrees. There's computer science, which is a very deep understanding that is not always needed for all software development jobs. And then there are more software and engineering degrees that focus a bit more on the newest technologies. I think if you have a knack for it, a boot camp can be great. If you don't if you don't really have computer experience, if you don't necessarily have an interest in it, I would think that a boot camp could be tough. You might learn some very specific things, but then as you develop later, have trouble picking up more concepts. But what's also nice about a boot camp, I think, is it's a great opportunity to see if you like this job. If you do the boot camp and you hate every moment of it, you probably shouldn't do this. It requires a certain amount of love for the field because you're always learning new things. The education never stops, whether you get certifications or not. There's always something new. There's always changes, which is one of the fun things about the industry, I think. But if you don't like it, then you don't like it. That's fair.
And just going back to what you mentioned before, you said that sometimes 4 years, that's a great starting point, but it shouldn't take that long. So how long, in your opinion, do you think it should take before someone can say, you know what, this is something that I can do. I'm really catching on to this quickly versus this is taking me way too long to get. This is probably not what I should be doing.
I think within 6 months of working it, you should be able to see improvement in your code, in your development. You should also be able to see if you enjoy the process, if you're constantly annoyed by things changing. One thing I find funny is that if I look at code I wrote 6 months ago, I'm not happy with it. I've learned something and I'm like, oh, why did I do it that way? Because I didn't know. If you can look at your code from 6 months ago and you don't see anything wrong with it, you probably haven't learned anything or changed anything. And longer than that, and it might as well be written by somebody else. Going back and figuring out what it is set up to do, it might as well have been written by someone else. So within 6 months, I think that you should definitely see some improvement. Some things should be easier, and picking up new things should be easier.
Okay. And I'm asking this next question for those that have been in the comments and said, hey, I am interested in doing or being a software engineer, and I've been doing all these courses, and Juliet, I still can't seem to find a job and I don't know what's going on. What's your advice as a well-seasoned professional in this space for someone who loves this, has done maybe a boot camp or even have gone to school, but is struggling to find work? What's your tip for them to navigate this crazy job market right now?
I think part of the problem is it's the constant loop of to get a job, you need experience. To get experience, you need a job. But the nice thing about software engineering is you can write your own programs and you can put them up on a service like GitHub. You can have your code up in public on GitHub. And then when you're applying for a job, you can point them to your GitHub repository so they can see the code that you've written and they can see what you're capable of, because that's really what it is. How do you prove what you're capable of? I think, and that's one place where boot camps are at a disadvantage, because I think there's at least a perception that you can get through a boot camp and pass it and still not really know what you're doing.
Yes.
And I don't know how much of that is true, how much of that is perception, but the perception's definitely there. So if you've got a body of code that you can point to, another thing you can do, which is in line with this, is contribute to existing open source projects. These are software projects that are being developed by a bunch of people just working cooperatively. And if you can point to the fact that you've contributed to this, that gives you a lot of credibility. It's like an artist portfolio.
I love that. I love that. And speaking about your awesome career, for those that don't know, he has worked at a number of great companies and have contributed so much. Where do you see yourself? Maybe I'm just gonna throw out five. What do you see? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What is on your board for as far as goals?
I've moved from company to company as situations change, but Bambi is something I've been involved with from the very beginning. And it's a great small team that we're all very focused. And I don't see myself leaving Bambi as long as things stay the way they're going, as long as we're making great software and getting great feedback from our customers. It's really an enjoyable work. I'm finding that I like smaller companies better.
Right.
And who knows, Bambi could get bought by somebody else and then maybe things change. It's hard to say. There's a lot going on with healthcare right now. The NAMT business, I know, is growing rapidly. So I see a lot of great future for Bambi. So for right now, I don't have any plans to go anywhere. And in terms of what my job is, if the company grows, I could see having a more senior position within the engineering, but I don't see myself going into management or anything. That's not really my strength. I like developing the software.
I love that. I love that. Now, before we close, this is something that I like to do at the end just to learn more about you outside of your career. So, this is called Rapid Fire Recess. And I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and you're just going to tell us your answer. So, here's the first question. If you could instantly master any skill outside of tech, what would it be and why?
Ooh, it would be another language. And I think I would pick Mandarin.
Okay, why?
It's a language that is used a lot. I think that there's a lot of use for it. It would allow me to explore a culture that I'm not very familiar with. It's one thing to try to understand Chinese culture, but if I spoke the language and understood it, or Japanese culture, any language I would love to learn. I've tried learning with like Duolingo and stuff, and I just have trouble sticking with it.
No. Okay. Okay. What is one thing besides your phone that you can't live without during a workday?
Ooh, one thing besides my phone,
Yes.
I can't. The first thing that comes to mind is my glasses because I'm blind as a bat without them. But my phone is a big one. But I would say I can't live without fruit. And I know that sounds weird, but I like to snack, and I find fruit is a great healthy way to snack. Where I still enjoy it. It's got both flavor and health. And I tell myself that I can eat as much of it as I want because it has to be healthy. It's fruit.
Yes. And what's your favorite fruit? I'm just curious.
Ooh, my favorite fruit is starfruit. A little underripe, where it's tart and juicy. But
I
yeah.
love peaches, so I
Oh, peaches are great too.
yes. Okay, and the last one, if you could and it's anybody in the world, if you could swap jobs with anyone for a day, no limits on the person, who would it be, and what would you wanna learn from that experience?
Oh, wow. Swap jobs with
Anyone in the world.
I think I would want to swap jobs with the president of the United States
Okay.
because I've always thought that would be a horrible job that I would never ever want. And I'm sure the day wouldn't change my mind on that. But I think it would just be so interesting to find out how things really work at that level. Because we all have this perception of how the job is. There's always how everybody presents themselves.
Yeah.
But to actually see what it's like to have that much responsibility and to see how much good I could do in a day. Probably not much given how bureaucratic the government is, but I'd try to come up with something.
I love that. I love that. Now, first off, thank you once again for your time. Now, before we close officially here, two more questions. Someone's watching this, they're like, okay, this was a great interview. I love this information. What's your final piece of advice for that person that I know someone is watching that is maybe doing courses on their own and boot camp, whatever? What's your advice for them as they are trying to be you in the future? What's your advice for them?
My advice would be to focus on a relatively small area, say Python and Django, say for building web applications, because there's so much out there and so much of it is so interesting. And once you really get going, you'll find you have the time and ability to explore all kinds of different areas. But if you try to grab it all right at first, it's just going to be impossibly difficult.
I love that advice because it is a lot. I've looked at it. I'm like, whoa, don't know even where to start.
Yeah, it can seem overwhelming, but really you can focus on a small area and grow from there.
Okay. And now, if anyone is watching this interview and they're like, oh, he's a cool guy, I really would love to connect with him, or I don't know, whatever the case may be, email, how would you want people to connect with you?
LinkedIn is the best choice. I'm not a big social media person, so I would say LinkedIn. I see the messages daily, so if anybody has any questions or anything, yeah, that's fine. And I think that's a good way to stay in touch. I'm not a big LinkedIn person. I don't write articles or anything, but I do keep up with it and I do respond to messages.
Awesome. So I will be sure to provide his LinkedIn at the bottom of the description. Please don't ask questions that he's already answered, guys. Let it be something that maybe he didn't say, but feel free to reach out. And thank you once again, Eric, for your time. You're a busy man over at Bambi Health. So thank you so much for your time. And thank you guys for watching the Health IT Playground. Once again, make sure that you have subscribed to this channel if you haven't already. And let me know in the comment section what you've learned from Eric in this interview, because I've learned a lot. So thank you again, Eric, for your time, and see you guys on the next episode of the Health IT Playground. Bye.